How long do you generally last during intercourse? I know that male adult film stars can last an unrealistic amount of time, but I'm talking about regular guys. If you're achieving 20-minute durations, how do you make yourself last longer? Story 1. My record is 5 minutes, but that's only because she was doing that grinding motion women do when they're riding. As soon as we changed to doggy style, I finished in 30 seconds like usual. Story 2. Search r/ask women how long they want you to last. Most women are fine with averages and experience exhaustion and pain from prolonged duration. Use this information as you see fit. Story 3. Take care of her first. Then, it doesn't really matter how long you last. Remember, toys are teammates, not enemies. Thank you to everyone for the awards. Story 4. I take Zoloft for anxiety and depression, which can cause erectile dysfunction, so I also take Cialis for that. About 3 months ago, I started working out, lifting weights, and doing cardio. My cardio routine is mainly on the treadmill, but my gym is often very hot, so my stamina in the bedroom has greatly improved from an endurance standpoint. Some nights I have difficulty reaching orgasm, so I focus on taking care of my wife and then get some rest. It's all about the connection between body and mind. Story 5. I wait until she arrives and then pick up the pace to finish. I have never had an issue lasting because I am not just trying to rush to the end. I am focused on pleasing the woman I'm with. Story 6. I can go 2 minutes at full throttle and then it's time to evacuate. The woman enjoys it, saying it makes her feel attractive. Story 7. As you grow older, your performance may decline. My partner wants to experience pleasure before I do. I reach satisfaction shortly after her. It's about quality, not quantity, when both of us achieve satisfaction. Have a good day. Story 8. A woman speaking here, the guys are saying an hour. Trust me, we just want you to stop at this point. Also, most women do not achieve orgasm from penetration alone. Stimulation of the clitoris is what works for us. Story 9. I usually outlast my significant other. It just depends on whether I'm sober or not, or when I last engaged in self-pleasure. Honestly, she gets worn out from how many orgasms she has compared to me. I could go for an hour or two more, but I'm more adventurous than she is, and she tends to be more traditional. If I actually receive oral sex as foreplay, then I won't last very long regardless of other circumstances. Story 10. The right answer is to take care of her before yourself. It doesn't matter how long. Adult content is misleading. It is edited to make it appear as though it lasts much longer than it actually does. Story 11. I can definitely last longer as I get older, even though my testosterone levels have decreased. In my early 20s, I would finish in about 30 seconds. Now, I can last much longer, averaging around 5 to 10 minutes. It's important to note that most women generally do not prefer penetration lasting much longer than that. Story 12. I typically go a solid 15 to 20 minutes. Often, I wear a condom to last longer, even though I am married and my wife has had a procedure to prevent pregnancy. Story 13. Breathing is essential. Take slow, deep breaths. Avoid fast movements. Use slow, rhythmic movements, exploring different angles and sensations. When excitement builds, slow down and focus on kissing, touching, or caressing, and mentally engage in those actions. This approach can extend the experience to an hour of sensual lovemaking. However, intense and forceful movements may lead to a quick finish. Story 14. It depends. If it has been a while, it feels like a lot quicker. If I am doing it regularly, then it takes between 20 to 30 minutes. I always laugh when I see guys saying they go for a minimum of 3 hours. I wonder where they find the time. Story 15. As a woman, I believe I can speak for many of us. We do not want 2 hours of sex. For me, it's about passion, intensity, and connection. The ideal duration is around 20 to 30 minutes. When you start thinking about when it will finish because you have other things to do, it's not good. Additionally, if you have to take over and do it yourself to finish, we feel bad and wonder what we are doing wrong, so please teach us. Don't just take over. Story 16. I generally last about 20 minutes, but can extend it to over an hour with proper foreplay and technique. Story 17. If I wanted to, I could extend it to 40 minutes or 1 hour, but my fiancé and I found that around 20 to 25 minutes is the best. I stopped enjoying it as much after that. Story 18. I was in a motorcycle accident in my late teens that caused nerve damage. I cannot feel a majority of my leg, and I do not experience the same sensation as I did before the accident. I have been able to endure for hours because for me, it feels like sprinting underwater. It is nearly impossible to reach the finish line. Story 19. I can last as long as I want, but I'm older now. When I was young and just starting out, I didn't last long at all, but over time I improved. Story 20. I'm going to provide details now. I can last for 5 minutes initially, and if I still have an erection, I can continue for 20 minutes. It is not pleasurable for me, but it is for her. Story 21. Admiring male adult film stars for lasting long is like admiring Tony Stark for building a time machine in the same movie you were watching. Story 22. Male adult film actors do not last significantly longer. A single film shoot consists of several sexual encounters, sometimes over days, that are edited together. If you pay attention, you can notice the transitions between cuts. The skill these actors possess is to maintain an erection while being observed by numerous people and having a camera directed at them. Additionally, they often endure various humiliating experiences to gain access to mainstream scenes. Story 23. Fore and post-play should take some time, typically 3 to 13 minutes. That was the consensus on the old Loveline show, which seems fairly accurate in my opinion. Story 24. 5 to 10 minutes unless she's on top, which is required for her to climax. In that case, I can last as long as she needs, 15 to 30 minutes. Story 25. I rarely finish because it isn't about my own pleasure. Rather, it's focused on my partner's satisfaction. Being driven, I aim to blow her mind and elicit a reaction of amazement or approval. Additionally, after 20 minutes, I lose sensitivity, which enables me to continue until I become physically exhausted. Story 26. I'm not a performer in the adult film industry, but I've heard they film the initial scenes first and then capture the rest afterwards. During editing, they rearrange the footage to make it appear as though the scenes last 30 to 40 minutes, when in reality, the actual filming took about 5 minutes, followed by cleanup and repositioning before continuing. Story 27. The way my vagina hurts if my husband takes too long can be quite concerning. I find it frustrating when it takes too long. Am I not attractive enough? If you're worried, it's best to stop before penetration, but most women are usually fine with a few minutes. Personally, it only takes about a minute for me to climax, and after that, I prefer to take a break and continue later rather than feeling sore the next day. Story 28. Pornography is entertainment if you can classify it as such. Have you ever seen how it is produced? Much of it involves stop-and-start filming, along with extensive cutting and editing. I would never compare normal sex to pornography. Story 29. On average, it takes 15 to 20 minutes. If we prolong the foreplay, it typically lasts 10 minutes or less. Additionally, male actors take breaks between scenes. They maintain their arousal for hours, often with the help of substances, but it is not as if they engage in intercourse for 4 hours continuously. Story 30. It depends. When my girlfriend and I first started, I could go for about 30 to 45 minutes, but now it's more like 20 minutes. Story 31. 2 to 5 minutes for a quick session. 5 to 20 minutes for regular intercourse. A combination of both, with 10 to 30 minutes in between for a complete session. Story 32. I have sensitivity issues, so I can last as long as my partner can handle it. However, I would advise that if your foreplay and afterplay are amazing, you could last 3 minutes, and I promise no one will complain. Story 33. About halfway through Marvin Gaye's Greatest Hits album, if you count the first 5 songs as foreplay. Story 34. My first girlfriend had a key to our house and would wake me up in the morning. Those were amazing years. I would ensure she experienced pleasure at least once, or more if we had time, before we became intimate. We never engaged in anything extreme, apart from one time when she gave me a surprise while driving home from the beach. I kept track on a calendar of how many times we were intimate. I could manage 5 times back then. Story 35. Last night was better for me, lasting over 20 minutes. I had about 6 beers and smoked some cannabis, which I believe helped. There's a strategy where, as you approach climax, you change something like the stroke speed or position, anything really. I started tensing my abdominal muscles and doing a strong Kegel when I got close, which seemed to reset the clock a bit without breaking the rhythm. My girlfriend was doing over 90% of the work, and she was exhausted. Story 36. Well, I get in and honestly just try to stay in bed until I absolutely have to get out. It doesn't really matter if I get in at 9 p.m. or 3 a.m. If I have to be at work by 7, I won't be getting out of bed until 6:35 or whatever time it takes me to arrive 5 minutes late. Story 37. I believe foreplay can last a good while, but the actual intercourse time isn't great for either partner for more than 30 minutes in my experience. That isn't to say you can't continue later. The most orgasms I've had in one session as a male is 5 times, and I felt drained afterward. Story 38. The duration can vary from 5 to 45 minutes depending on the rhythm and velocity. It may also depend on factors such as the partner's eagerness and my level of fatigue. Story 39. If I use a specific position, I can last much longer. However, when I switch to another position, it only lasts about 3 minutes. Story 40. My first cycle can be 5 to 15 minutes. After I release the children, I will take a 3 to 5 minute break. The second cycle can range from 2 to 4 hours. After the release of the juveniles, I rest for 12 hours. Story 41. From a woman's perspective, I won't coddle you by saying, I find it so flattering when men finish quickly. I personally find that frustrating. Everyone is different. Research indicates that women may take around 45 minutes to reach full arousal, but that doesn't mean penetrative intercourse should last the entire time. You can bridge the gap with foreplay, oral stimulation, and alternating between penetration and further stimulation. When sex is adventurous, fun, focused on the journey rather than just the destination, and well lubricated, several hours can be wonderful. If you prefer traditional positions and want to keep it brief, at least be efficient, clean, and complimentary. Make sure to offer her a glass of water and a cuddle afterward. She has adjusted her body for you, so it's the least you can do. Story 42. I can last as long as I want. If it starts getting too intense, I just stop thrusting or slow down, make out or go down on her. However, I can barely last longer than 1 minute from oral stimulation. I don't know why. Story 43. I can go for as long as I want and choose when to finish, even when not using protection. It just comes with experience, I guess. It wasn't always that way. The more you engage in sexual activity, the more you get accustomed to it. Story 44. I'm on some medication that makes it take longer. It's physically difficult for me to finish in under an hour. Story 45. You know, editing in adult videos exists, right? Trust me, longer does not always mean better. Story 46. Have more sex. As silly as that sounds, I went from lasting around 5 minutes to my partners not even being able to please me without a tremendous effort just by increasing frequency. Story 47. Anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes, depending on how long it has usually been. Additionally, wearing a raincoat helps significantly. Story 48. I am quite the exception and I am proud of it. Let's just say that however much the lady needs, I am happy to wait at the finish line for her to get there at her own pace. Story 49. 40 to 60 minutes, sometimes longer. I can make it in 20 if we're in a hurry, but I prefer to take my time. The secret is that when you start feeling ready, switch it up. Change position, change pace, or whatever. Story 50. I sleep pretty well, to be honest. Anything below 6 hours is a bad night. Sometimes I get about 12 hours of sleep, and it's just lovely. Story 51. Unless I am giving her oral and trying to see how many times or how hard she can climax, I usually climax when she does. That is how our bodies seem to work. If I have finished her off before penetration, I may not climax and will have to wait until next time. The short answer is that it depends on what is happening during our activity. Story 52. 20 minutes is great. It's more than enough for me. I can't finish through penetration anyway, like many women. What I prefer is for my partner to help me climax once or twice, then have a bit of penetration for about 5 minutes, followed by oral or manual stimulation, and then repeat. That can go on for about an hour and I'd be happy. However, my preference is for penetration not to last longer than 5 minutes at a time, or I tend to get bored. I guess if a woman can finish from penetration, it is different. Story 53. My best recommendation is to position yourself at an angle that applies a bit of pressure. Avoid going too far, but a little discomfort can actually enhance the experience. It can feel pleasurable for your partner if you find the right angle, and it can be enjoyable for you as well. Story 54. I know the combination to my wife's lock, so for me, it's not about how long I can last. It's about whether I can make her reach orgasm first. Once I stopped worrying about being a marathon man, it got much better for both of us. It usually lasts around 5 minutes, sometimes with foreplay until she reaches orgasm. Then she experiences a second orgasm with penetration. I wish I could reach orgasm twice. Occasionally, we enjoy hot stone massages beforehand, and coconut oil is safe for use as massage oil. We rarely have massages afterward, but we do engage in a second round. I like to make it a whole experience. An appetizer or two, a main course, and dessert, along with a few cocktails. I believe food and intimacy share many mixed metaphors. Most of the time, we simply go for the act, but when the kids are gone, it's game on and feels like an event. I sometimes miss when we had more time alone, but it's all worth it. Story 55. My boyfriend can usually last 15 to 20 minutes, but he can also make it quick when we need to. I'm asking him right now, and he says you just have to be aware of the sensation building, pause when necessary, and avoid contracting or twitching the muscle. Story 56. If I am not getting any, it takes around 5 to 10 minutes. If I am in some type of routine, it can last a couple of hours with multiple orgasms. Story 57. I find myself having the best time after 1 to 2 drinks. If it's 3 or more, then alcohol makes things not work at all. It takes around 5 to 10 minutes, assuming just penile-initiated vaginal intercourse. I do a lot of other activities. Story 58. An hour of foreplay for her, followed by whatever she wants to do for me for any amount of time. Then about 10 minutes of penetration. Story 59. 20 to 30 minutes nowadays, but I'm getting older and heavier, and my heart can't take it anymore. Still, that's drastically down from what it used to be. Story 60. My last partner was the best I have ever had for many reasons beyond the penetrative aspect of sex. It lasted for hours, starting with lots of making out and touching, then oral and finally penetration with frequent position changes. We both had a high sex drive, so even after he finished, he would usually return to oral or fingering until he was ready to go again. Yes, the penetrative part was always great, but everything leading up to it and in between made it even better. Penetration for more than about 10 to 15 minutes can start to feel uncomfortable. Story 61. It depends on how you mean. Between ejaculations, I usually last around 15 minutes for the first one, 30 minutes for the second, and over 45 minutes for the third. I can stay hard after that, but there is really not much left for me to release. Overall, my limit is around 2 hours. Most women do not need that long and prefer to stop after the second round. Anyone claiming several hours is misleading, as no woman wants to deal with discomfort after they have run out of moisture. Story 62. It all depends. You have to pace yourself and focus on the other aspects. Start with that and gradually work your way up to penetration. It may be best to take breaks and return to it. This approach is key to lasting longer. No one is simply thrusting continuously for an hour. That is unrealistic. Story 63. I have been in Colorado, and the altitude has made me need more sleep. Now, I am getting around 9 hours a night. Story 64. This may sound unusual, but it has always worked for me. If I want to keep things going, I intentionally cramp my calf muscle. It hurts, but it's distracting and gives me a reason to change positions. Alternatively, I think about the point spread in a hockey game. I start with the score, consider which line it would have been on, and think about who else might have been on the ice. Story 65. Some days it's a struggle to last more than 3 to 5 minutes, but it's a worthy challenge. Other days, it's easier to go for 10 to 20 minutes. My wife can usually experience orgasm once or twice in 15 minutes, so there's not much reason to go longer than that. Story 66. If you are achieving times of 20 minutes, how do you make yourself last longer? Genetics and good health. Story 67. To last longer, take it easy and change positions if you need a little cool down. Satisfy them or get close to it during foreplay, and most women are happy with 10 to 15 minutes of actual sex. Story 68. I have difficulty reaching climax due to an injury, so I typically focus on foreplay and making her feel good. When she is satisfied, I do a little trick to finish myself. Story 69. When you're getting close, pull it out and use your fingers or tongue for a while. Repeat as necessary. If I just went for it, it would be over in 5 minutes or 10 on a good day. Also, the wetter she is, the longer you will last. If you lubricate and penetrate without proper foreplay, it will not feel good and will end quickly. If she is really warmed up, it will be nicer and less intense. Story 70. I am a young adult but have old-fashioned views on romance and sex. I feel more comfortable with intimacy when I have been dating someone for a while and we both feel ready. I had a few casual encounters in college, but they were not significant. Because of this, I only engage in intimacy when I am in a relationship, which I am not currently in, so my experiences tend to be brief. Story 71. It can take 10 to 15 minutes of penetration. I find it extremely difficult to help a woman reach orgasm through penetration alone. I have only managed it a few times in my life. Ensuring she reaches orgasm first through oral stimulation and fingering seems to be the key. Story 72. Lasting 30 to 45 minutes. My partner says it's the best part of our sex life. Lasting longer is an inherent challenge, I guess. Media creates fantasies about size, but women really care more about how long we last. That's what I've been told anyway. Story 73. It depends on how I am feeling. I can be quick if I am tired or really not in the mood. Foreplay helps create a longer experience. It is not just about lasting longer. It is about her reaching climax sooner. Story 74. I typically focus on my partner and ensure she feels pleasure. I aim to build anticipation, and the connection we share is intense. I enjoy exploring different aspects of intimacy, and I strive to make the experience enjoyable for both of us. If I were to engage in intimacy without any preparation, I might find myself reaching a climax quickly, as the attraction is strong. Fortunately, I am usually able to recover quickly and continue our mutual enjoyment. Story 75. First, I'll give you 30 seconds. After that, I can honestly go forever. It's just that first moment that I struggle to hold in. Story 76. First round lasted about 15 minutes as I paced myself appropriately. The second and third rounds took much longer, which pleased her several times. In the end, 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye without any issues as she remained wet. Story 77. First round lasts 2 to 3 minutes, and the second round takes place after 1.5 hours. It often feels too long, and I frequently run out of stamina before starting. Story 78. I try to last around 15 to 20 minutes. Taking breaks is key, honestly. If we are talking about round 2, I can go for over 30 minutes. Story 79. Around 2 hours, whether with a partner or during solitary activities. Delayed ejaculation can be quite frustrating. Story 80. I think 20 to 30 minutes is good for me, but not all at the same time. I like being in bed with my partner, so I try to keep myself balanced by not doing one thing for too long and switching things up. I make sure she has more orgasms than I do. I have one, and I'm 49, so my orgasms are spaced out by days. Story 81. It has been my experience with several women that you usually do not need to last more than 10 minutes. Some women actually enjoy seeing a man climax in about 60 seconds, while others may find it upsetting. Just do your best to pleasure her in the way she prefers, and ask if she wants you to finish now or wait. It's okay to take a moment to engage in other forms of intimacy before returning to intercourse. Story 82. It depends on how into it my wife is. The problem is that if she is enjoying herself, I struggle to last longer. There's a real catch-22. I want to last longer for her enjoyment, but her enjoyment makes me enjoy it more, which causes me to last less time. Male adult film actors often have assistants who help them maintain performance. Sometimes my wife plays that role for me so we can keep going. Story 83. The duration can range from 5 to 45 minutes. It depends on whether I have control of the situation and how engaged the woman is. If I'm very turned on and she is actively trying to excite me while controlling the tempo, I may find it challenging to maintain my focus. However, if I can manage the foreplay and she is not being overly vocal, I can shift my focus to other thoughts and control my urges better. Story 84. My friend travels anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes. Can get sore and tiring, but we have a system. Story 85. It all depends on the position and how long I want to last, but statistically speaking, around 40% of men experience premature ejaculation. Therefore, I had to teach myself how not to climax right away and in which position to achieve that. The bottom line is that I make sure she orgasms first before I let go. Foreplay has always been more important to me than penetration. Story 86. I think I am a bit unusual, but I can actually last as long as I want. It's like I have always had this ability to disengage from sensations if I choose. Similarly, when I am ready, I can re-engage and generally be done pretty quickly. I used to skate when I was young, and often I would get badly hurt and be lying there in pain. I practiced disengaging from the pain and often wonder if this is where I learned the technique. Story 87. Alcohol or cannabis can help me last as long as I want at a normal pace. Once I speed up, it is game over. If I go too long and get tired, then I lose stamina. Story 88. Predate for 5 to 10 minutes. Postdate for 1 to 2 hours. Lubrication is beneficial. Afternoon delight for 1 to 5 minutes. Story 89. I used to finish quickly before engaging in foreplay, hoping to last longer during intercourse. Now, I focus on her pleasure first, and then I enjoy myself for a brief period, and we're both satisfied. Story 90. The longest I was busy with my ex was 1.5 hours. I am somewhat proud, but afterwards I dislike myself because it felt unpleasant. Story 91. I usually last about 1.5 to 2 hours on average. It's a significant problem. Most of the time, I just give up. I dislike it. Story 92. The duration of intimacy is often much longer than expected, sometimes lasting 30 to 45 minutes. In high school, a girl I dated once asked me, "Are you ever going to finish?" I always believed that my ability to last longer was a good thing, but as I grew older, I realized that many women prefer shorter sessions, usually around 10 to 15 minutes. I suspect that excessive self-pleasure might be contributing to this issue. Story 93. Do you think people can engage in an intense activity for 20 minutes nonstop? Start with some oral stimulation, then switch to penetration, change to fingers, return to penetration, and then back to oral. Keep varying the actions. Story 94. Take care of each other, engage in foreplay, and ensure that both partners are adequately aroused. A great sexual experience typically lasts between 20 to 40 minutes. Additionally, adult film actors do not perform continuously for long periods. It is well known that they take breaks to film new scenes. Story 95. Adult film stars do not last forever. A 20-minute film can take hours to complete. For me, it can vary from 5 minutes to 20. Can be unpredictable. Sometimes it's quick, while other times it can feel prolonged. Story 96. 20-minute sessions typically include foreplay. Pure sexual activity lasting 20 minutes isn't usually comfortable or enjoyable. Story 97. It's too long and hard to finish. Partners ask why, but I really don't mind not finishing. 20 years ago, it was a completely different story. It's mostly about the mindset, which doesn't mean you can't do something about it. Story 98. Honestly, there are times when neither my wife nor I can last more than a couple of minutes. There are other times when we engage for 30 to 45 minutes. In the first couple of years, it was more like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, but that feels excessive. The goal is to reach climax. I usually aim for a 3-to-1 ratio for her. If I can give her two, we're both happy. If we each get one, then I am a little disappointed, but she remains content. Story 99. It takes 45 minutes if I'm very excited and hours if I'm a bit stressed. Sometimes I don't reach climax. Even masturbation can take too long at times. Story 100. There is no way my wife is lasting longer than 15 or 20 minutes, and I wouldn't want to go longer either. Story 101. It's too long. This is actually an issue. Luckily, she found the button. I take care of her first, then we focus on me. Story 102. It has honestly been years, so I'm sure I would not last long now, but I used to be able to go until I focused on the sensation of climaxing. Alcohol helps, but honestly, it is just about getting used to the feeling again. Practice makes perfect. Story 103. I usually sleep for at least 6 to 8 hours. If I didn't have to work to survive, I would sleep 18 to 20 hours. Story 104. I would say my average time is 10 to 15 minutes. Takes longer if I have had a few drinks. It took a while to reach that point, and since I am almost 40, that probably factors in as well. Story 105. Antidepressants can help lengthen performance as long as desired. It becomes a mental focus exercise, but it becomes nearly impossible after overstimulation. Unless I haven't achieved release for 3 days. Story 106. Honestly, unromantic aspects such as being afraid of babies and rushing into sex without foreplay have helped me endure for a long time. Story 107. It really depends. We hadn't had intimacy in a few days, and I finished in about 10 minutes after I had just stimulated her to completion. Sometimes, when we are intimate twice a day, it lasts around 20 to 40 minutes or even an hour. We have gone for about 2 hours once. It just depends on a lot of factors. Story 108. 1 to 40 minutes. Change positions to less intense ones. Use a constricting ring. Take pauses to use your finger or mouth instead. Story 109. Having 2 kids, I try to finish quickly before they start knocking on the door. It usually takes about 5 minutes. Story 110. This can actually be trained. In my 20s, I was having relationships with women I considered attractive. The first one of this caliber I was going to experience improved as my brain got used to it. Each time I managed to find a new partner, it would be quick initially, but I could almost last indefinitely after seeing them for more than 2 weeks. That's when you realize you need to be physically fit. Now that I'm in my 40s, if someone I am with even sneezes near me, I struggle to maintain control. With women my own age, I can manage things better, but if I try to hold back for over 15 minutes, I often lose focus. I recently went through a challenge with high-end escorts to teach myself how to perform better. I got some medication to help me last longer and learned breathing exercises, practicing them during self-exploration. It works, but you have to keep it up. At this age, fitness and diet also play important roles. You can train to improve your performance. It's all psychological. If you worry about finishing early, you are more likely to do so, especially if you are genuinely interested in the person. This can lead to premature reactions or frustration with constant interruptions. However, if you are the type of person who doesn't get overly excited and doesn't idolize the woman, you are likely to last longer. I have seen this happen, and I've spoken to friends who feel similarly. Story 111. Regardless of your endurance, most women, in my experience, are ready for it to be done in 15 to 20 minutes at most. It's not about duration, but efficiency. Story 112. Porn is a poor example. In my 20s, I could last 15 to 30 minutes. At 51, I can last 45 to 60 minutes. My wife can endure intimacy for over an hour. She has a strong response. Story 113. It's amusing because some people believe it's about lasting a long time. If you can make her reach orgasm in 2 minutes, you will never be alone. If it takes you 30 minutes to achieve that, then good luck. Story 114. A typical intimate session with my wife includes me providing oral pleasure for 1 to 2 hours, during which she experiences multiple orgasms. This is followed by about 15 minutes of intercourse, and she finishes the experience with oral stimulation that lasts another 5 to 10 minutes. I often feel sore in the hips afterward. Unless you are an athlete in peak physical condition, Sustaining prolonged intimacy can be quite challenging. Additionally, a woman's body may not produce sufficient lubrication for extended sessions. Story 115. It depends on how excited you are or how long it's been since the last time. I have attempted 3 strokes but was unable to finish. The important thing is whether everyone crosses the finish line. Story 116. The entire session lasts about 45 minutes, with 5 to 10 minutes dedicated to penetration. Remember, penetration is not the event. It is the finale. Story 117. I always lasted a good while, but my wife would let me know when it became too much. We had good communication. Story 118. Fellow men, is it safe to use the numbing cream? I have been using it lately, and I am lasting noticeably longer. Story 119. My wife just had a baby, so I have to wait until 6 weeks. It was a difficult pregnancy, so I haven't slept with her for 5 to 6 months. I will probably last 5 to 6 minutes at most. Story 120. I'm going to answer as a woman. My husband can finish in 5 minutes if it's a quick encounter, 20 minutes if I want it, and over an hour if alcohol or stimulants are involved. Story 121. I guess it depends on what constitutes lasting during sex. For many men, the goal is to quickly engage and ultimately finish. For a good number of women, sex isn't just that. It involves the entire experience, including the start, foreplay, and more. The whole experience, cuddling, foreplay, sensual touching, mutual stimulation, sex, and cooling down, probably lasts at least an hour up to 2 hours. The actual penetrative sex portion may last 5 to 30 minutes, varying based on how well I can withhold and how many rounds I can go. The most important thing for me has always been to ensure she orgasms, rather than focusing solely on the number of orgasms she experiences. Before penetration, I can usually get at least 1 orgasm from her, and then another during. So at least 2. I've noticed that if you can get a woman excited enough to orgasm before penetrative sex, she's much more likely to orgasm during it, especially if she has had multiple orgasms beforehand. By shifting my focus, I went from sometimes giving her 1 orgasm to always giving her 2, with a record of 6 in 1 session. At this point, how long I last doesn't really become a concern anymore. Story 122. First, you're right about adult film actors. Keep in mind that a lot of that stamina is staged. The close-up shots of a big, rigid penis penetrating a voluptuous female often involve another person stepping in to cover for an actor who cannot maintain an erection, or the actor may be using medications for performance enhancement. Here are 2 things you can do for stamina without medication. 1. Perform Kegel exercises. Practice edging. I have practiced edging during sexual activity and have impressed others with my stamina in group settings. It works. Story 123. Training muscle control can help you last as long as you desire. I can promise you that I have never met a single woman who wants you to go on for too long, as it can become uncomfortable or painful for her. Story 124. I have mentioned this in other threads in this forum. I have idiopathic delayed ejaculation, which can take over 90 minutes for me to climax. It may sound like a superpower, but it isn't. It is difficult to go for round 2 when my partner is incredibly tired from the first round. Story 125. Never compare yourself to an adult film actor. That's like comparing your fighting skills to a person who competes in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Adult film actors are professionals. They train to last longer and have an entire film crew to edit out breaks during scenes. Additionally, they may use substances to help them perform better. With that said, the first round is usually short. It's the second and third rounds where I really excel. So my advice is to never stress about the first round. Aim for 2 rounds or more if you want to last longer. Story 126. I average about 30 to 45 minutes. Lubrication can become an issue at times, but I have allocated 60 to 90 minutes when lubrication is sufficient. Personally, I believe that focusing on the other person's pleasure significantly increases the time. Story 127. If I am wearing a condom, I can last for about 20 to 30 minutes. If I am going without protection, I can usually last a maximum of 10 minutes before I finish. Being intoxicated helps, But how do you all manage to last for an hour? Story 128. Around 6 hours. My sleeping schedule is quite disrupted even though I have ideal conditions, so I am hoping to fix that soon. Story 129. I always had problems lasting less than 10 minutes during intimacy. On average, I last about 15 to 20 minutes, but sometimes it goes up to 40 minutes. This is not a boast. It can be uncomfortable. I often feel sore, and it can hurt my partner when sessions last that long. So, how do I last this long? The answer is anxiety, which can be frustrating because it often prevents full enjoyment of the experience. In my opinion, if you know what you're doing, you don't need more than 10 minutes. If you haven't helped your partner reach satisfaction in that time, it's unlikely to happen later. So, don't stress about the duration unless it's an extremely short time, like 3 minutes or less. Story 130. About 13 minutes at the most. However, like many other comments mentioned, I always ensure my partner finishes first. Story 131. I don't want to sound boastful, but it's indefinite. My wife is always done before I am. I don't find it hard to hold off, and then when she says she's ready, I let it go and we finish. I don't know if that's normal or not. Story 132. My record is about 90 minutes, but that was also my first time. Now I average around 15 minutes or less if I find the person to be extremely attractive, which doesn't have to be purely physical. However, I can go for about 3 to 4 rounds. Make sure to do your cardio, everyone. Story 133. When you are getting close to finishing, pull back, tease her, and then use your hands. This buys you time and makes her feel good. Story 134. The biggest myth in adult films is that men last a long time. In reality, they often finish quickly but can recover and perform again. The next time you watch adult films, you may notice that a man might finish in about 10 seconds from oral stimulation. The woman often pauses and seems hesitant to continue. Hand signals can also play a role in the scene. In Japanese adult films, it seems common for a performer to finish multiple times. I'm an expert in this field. Ask me anything. Story 135. Just penetration usually lasts anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the day. At 5 to 10 minutes of foreplay beforehand. I use condoms to help with premature ejaculation. Certain low-effort positions prevent directing blood flow to larger muscles, which helps maintain the erection. Story 136. I can be as quick or as long as needed. When I was younger, it was always quick, but now that I am older, I can be done in 30 seconds or last 30 minutes, depending on the mood and situation. Story 137. My wife wants me to last 5 minutes or less. She has already reached her peak satisfaction by the time penetration begins and is trying to make it as enjoyable as possible for me at that moment. I can typically go for about 30 minutes, but I never aim to last that long. Story 138. You only need to last a few seconds longer than she does. Anything more than that, and you are just doing cardio. Story 139. I hope to help with this. One of my partners and I took turns so we could enjoy it for as long as we needed. We would focus primarily on myself and then switch until there was a clear moment when we were either done or needed a break. Sometimes we would do this repeatedly to create a full session. It helped space out how long he could last, and I was in another dimension by the time he finished. It worked wonders. Story 140. 30. Give or take 10. Masturbating the day before makes it last longer. Not going overboard with masturbation and not doing it earlier in the day allows it to stay hard the entire time. Of course, I'm never actually timing it, so it's possible that 15 actual minutes feels like 30. Story 141. I tend to last longer if I have regular sex with my partner. Unfortunately, I work 20 days out of town at a time, so when I come home, it is a lot quicker compared to when I am about to go back to work. Story 142. I'm a 15-minute guy, and it often feels too long. I can tell my girlfriend gets impatient at times. I am not overly sensitive, and certain positions just do nothing for me. It's not something I do intentionally. Story 143. I like to spend about 45 to 60 minutes working. Most times, I have to cut the session short because my wife prefers only 15 to 25 minutes and she becomes worn out. Story 144. It varies a lot. Probably around 30 to 40 minutes of foreplay. I like to try to make her reach orgasm first through clitoral stimulation or fingering. I don't typically look at the clock, but it's probably around 7 to 15 minutes for that. So usually, the total time is from 20 minutes to an hour, including foreplay. Then I typically cuddle, take a nap, and go for another round, usually 2 to 3 rounds. Throughout the night and into the next morning, I have sometimes done 4 to 5 rounds. It depends on how aroused I am and how well my body cooperates. Sometimes I feel very aroused, but I can't maintain an erection. There are also times when I'm not really feeling aroused at all. Sometimes I can keep going and eventually give up on reaching orgasm. It all varies. Story 145. I have become very efficient over the years with my wife. She experiences pleasure within 3 to 5 minutes. Then I do as well. I would say that happens about 80% of the time. Occasionally, I get too excited and finish early, and sometimes she experiences multiple pleasure. Personally, I believe that if it lasts more than half an hour, something isn't working. Additionally, we have 2 kids at home, so we don't have time to waste. We focus on completing the task and moving on with our day. Story 146. Ever since I changed my mindset from do not focus on climaxing to enjoy the experience, I have been able to last as long as I want, typically between 5 to 20 minutes, depending on when my partner orgasms. With alcohol, I tend to last longer, over 30 minutes in some cases. However, I find that worrying about climaxing makes me reach that point much quicker than if I simply focus on the experience. Story 147. I unfortunately have delayed ejaculation. It's a mixed blessing. I can go until I'm exhausted, which is 30 to 45 minutes, and even then I don't finish. My wife doesn't like it when I go that long as she experiences soreness and eventually dryness. Usually, I am able to reach climax once a month during sex. On those rare occasions, I last about 30 minutes. Story 148. I experienced 5 thrusts for the first orgasm and then continued for about 7 minutes without any recovery before the second orgasm. After these initial experiences, I can usually achieve orgasm on demand. Story 149. As long as she gets what she needs. Usually, the average duration is 30 minutes in total. There are times when I can finish very quickly, though. I believe the ideal duration is 15 minutes. Foreplay should be almost as long, or just enough to ensure everything goes smoothly. I typically wait until she has reached satisfaction a few times before I focus on my own. Story 150. I can last over 20 minutes. My wife usually finishes around 15 to 20 minutes, so I don't push past that. I have attended sex parties and similar events. My secret is that I ejaculate frequently, usually 3 times a day. A lot of sexual activity and masturbation have helped increase my endurance. If I do not ejaculate for 2 days, I cannot last that long. The more sexual activity I have, the less it makes me want to ejaculate right away. I also practice edging. Story 151. Mine is delayed. It basically never happens. Women like it until they think they'll be the one to break the curse. All have failed. Perhaps someone needs to draft a prophecy. Story 152. I can usually last around 10 minutes of action without foreplay. The problem is that I often become less aroused from exhaustion before I reach climax if I focus on her instead of my own pleasure, because I want her to climax first. So maybe I should start thinking about my own needs more. Story 153. I used to be able to go for about an hour. Now, being married and hardly ever having intimate time, it's about 5 minutes. Story 154. Changing positions, stopping, and mixing in foreplay all contribute to a satisfying experience. The last time I had fantastic intimacy with multiple orgasms, more than 30, as we both lost count. We engaged in passionate activities for almost 2 hours. After grabbing lunch, we had sex again for another hour, took a nap, and then used toys. If you want to last longer, try edging. You need to practice getting close to orgasm without actually reaching it. This can help you prolong your experience. There are even instructional videos that demonstrate how to deny yourself and learn control. I prefer quality intimacy to last at least an hour. And this doesn't mean an hour of relentless action. It involves frequently changing things up and experiencing multiple orgasms. Again, this applies to quality intimacy. If I'm with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, I hope it ends in under 3 minutes so I can leave and lose their number immediately. Story 155. I can last as long as I need to. My goal is for the girl to finish first and make sure she is enjoying herself. I will finish on command when necessary. Story 156. Perhaps I'm in the minority, but I prefer pre-jack and fast climaxes. There is something incredibly sexy about it, and it is lovely to watch and experience. Story 157. Many factors come into play. How long has it been since my last experience? How tired am I? How in the mood am I? I've had sessions that ranged from just a few seconds to other times when I couldn't finish because my mind wasn't engaged or it was the 8th consecutive day of sessions. That said, there are ways to make the session last longer. If you are getting close and time is short, switch positions or focus on your partner to center yourself. Foreplay is effective for extending the experience and helping her reach satisfaction without penetration occurring yet. Use that to your advantage. Story 158. It depends. If I'm really turned on, it could be 2 minutes. At this point, there has already been about 30 minutes of foreplay. If we have gone a few times already, it could also be 20 to 30 minutes. If I'm drunk, it takes about 1 hour. Story 159. Cardio and deadlifts. I am 42 years old, and as recently as last week, I completed over 30 minutes of exercise and only finished because we were both exhausted. Story 160. My wife and I usually last around 20 to 80 minutes, depending on different factors. The longest session lasted 1 hour and 30 minutes. We were both exhausted afterward, and she mentioned that such extended sessions were not ideal as she experienced discomfort, possibly due to friction. I ended up with friction burn at the base of the shaft. Wetness wasn't the issue. It was simply prolonged activity. Long sessions can be enjoyable, but preparation is key. Shorter sessions can also be satisfying. It's all about how one approaches intimacy and how partners support each other. If you can achieve satisfaction in about 5 minutes, that's quite impressive. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.